Hi, welcome to Crafted Sweetly. I'm Diana. Thanks so much for being here. So in this video, I'd like to show you as a full tutorial how to create the pattern and then also the application. So in this video, I will first go through the process of creating the pattern in Excel. There is a program out there called Orimoto, and you can just go in there. You can subscribe to that particular pattern maker and create the pattern there. But I wanted to figure out how to create this in Excel, and I think it's an equally fine pattern. Turned out beautiful. I'm pleased with it. And it's easy to do it in Excel. So I'll go through that first, and then I'll show you how I applied. Now I'm making a list of the various supplies that I've used. I found those to streamline, that it helped to streamline the process, and it made it much easier to have the even strips as well as helping with the folding. Are they necessary? No, you can certainly do it without the equipment that I listed. It's just wanted to share with you what I'm using to create it. So let's get right into it. In order to create the file that's going to eventually be printed, I'm going to use Excel. Now there is another program out there, Orimoto is the website. So if you don't want to deal with any of this, you can certainly subscribe to that website and have the pattern printed according to their directions. It is a pretty involved program. You can do a lot of different book folding techniques using that. But I wanted to show you, if you don't have that subscription, how to create the file so that you can print it with your own printer using Excel. Now it will use a lot of pages, usually depending on the number of pages that you need to cover in your book. You will end up printing 10 to 16 20 pages even, if you know, depending again how many pages your book has. For this project, I am using a book that has 286 pages, and there's going to be a little bit of math involved in this. I have 286 pages in the book, so right now I'm not really doing anything on the book on the page itself, but just to show you, I have 286 pages in the book, which means I actually have half of that in the number of leaves. So each page has the front and back, obviously. So that means that I need 143 strips. Half of 286 is 143. And that's how many strips of paper I will need to cut in order to cover the edge of each page. For each strip of paper, I am using 1/2 inch width strips, which again is a little bit more math. It's half of the 143. So I need 71.5 inches of the pattern, of the photo. The photo itself needs to be 71.5 inches wide in order for me to cover the 286, well, the 143 leaves in the book. So I will take the 71.5 inches and I will show you how that all gets entered. But I just wanted to show you on the screen what that is. So I'm going to delete these from here. Now, in order to, you can go, like the photo itself will go this way. But in order to count out 143 letters, I think it's going to be a little harder. So what I'm going to do is use a little math here. So I will go, this will be 1, and then this is 1. This is the formula from here, A1 plus 2, meaning that's my page number 3 in the book. Okay, this is so you can keep track in a sense. You don't really need to as much as you would when you're doing book folding, so you don't lose track of it. But I think it'll just be easier to number these to get to the 286. So I'll copy this formula over. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to copy this one over, and I'm just going to go out as much as I can this way. Let's see where I am. Control V. So I am on page 173. I'll continue copying that over. So let's see, 173 is where I left off. I want to make sure that 171, 3, and then I want to end on page 286. I was close. I was off by 1 here, so I don't need this column. I'm going to delete this out of here. Now, I want all of these strips to be 1/2 inch wide. So I'm going to select all of the columns. And this, right now, this is actually not Excel, it's Libre Office. I don't have Excel on my laptop. If you don't have it, you can obviously do this in on your Mac as well, and just use their numbers program to create this same process. Now, each of these columns I want to be 1/2 inch wide. So I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to do column width, and instead of 0.89, I want that to be 0.5. Okay, so now I have all of these columns, and this is the distance that I want to cover on with the image that I'm going to insert in here, and that's how long I want the image to be. And this way, the height of the picture is going to be the height of your book. So in this case, it's 9 inches. My book is 9 inches high. So unlike in the traditional book folding where everything is in millimeters, I'm using this as in inches. And of course, you can translate this into millimeters as well. Now, for this, I'm going to insert the image next. So I'll go up here to insert image. And for this, I'm going to use this cute little girl for my image. And I'm going to come right up here with it. I do want this to be visible because it's going to help. I'm going to need this when I'm cutting the strips. So I have this image that I've inserted here. And now for the image, what I want to do is click position and size. And I know I want the height to be 9 inches. And I want the width to be 71.5 inches. And that's going to give me enough strips to cover all of the 143 leaves in the book that are all 9 inches high. And that's what you get for that. So let me zoom out a little bit. And there's the strips. Now if I click on this, it ends, as you can see, right at 286, which is the last page in my book. Okay, 285. And the 86 is the back side of it. Now the only other thing that I want to do is I do want to add lines to this, a border. So for starting with this, and then once you have that selected, then you can just click the border because I want to have the border on all of those boxes, and it'll help with cutting the strips once you get to that point. I'm going to move the image a little higher here. Let's see. Now, if I hit Control Print, Control P, so I want to make sure my margins are set. So I'm going to go into Format, Page, and right now that's the problem here. So I'm going to change this to 0.25 for all of them. And that gives me more print area. 0.25. 0.25. Okay, so now when I hit Control Print, it's going to be a lot fewer pages. See, it's 10 pages. Okay, so I'm going to cut. At this point, I can go ahead and print this. If you have any questions about this, you do really need these markings at the top, and that way you know you have enough strips to cut it. And as long as you set your columns to 0.5, which is 1/2 inch, it should give you the right amount in order to print the images. All right, I'm going to go off and print these. I printed out the sheets, and this is what they look like. You really can't tell looking individually at each page what it is, but once all these pages will go together, then we'll see what it looks like. So this is, here's kind of the face portion of it. But again, we've stretched this image way out. And looking at this, each of these from here to here is 1/2 inch. Okay, and that's where we're going to slice these. Now to cut this, I'm using this Caterpillar Pro. It is super handy in doing it because it's very accurate. I mean, you can use a different paper cutter. What I like with this is that I can cut multiple pages at once, and I know that I'm still gonna be accurate with it. All right, and so I'll take the first 2 pages, and once I cut this, I'll show you the next step for it to make the process easier and sort of streamlined. So first off, I want to make sure that if you're doing multiple pages at a time, make sure this part, you know, that everything is even. If not, if you're doing 1 page at a time, then that's fine. But I'm going to take this extra edge off right here. So let me move this so you can actually see what I'm doing. So I'm going to take this part off because I don't need that for sure. And that's the other nice thing with this. It has a light so you can see exactly where you're cutting. I'm not sure if you can tell on here. See if the light is off, but I can turn it on and then I know exactly what I am that I'm cutting straight. All right, and then obviously I'm using the top guide here. Zoom out a little bit so you can see a little better. Is right at the top, and I'm gonna take this part off. Okay, now the other portion that I want to take off is one of these sides, and I'll show you why, because we're gonna end up scoring each of these little pieces. So I'm gonna take off, doesn't matter which side, but I actually I will take off, let's see, I'm gonna work on the reverse side. So I'll take off this edge because I'm gonna start with the scoring here. And I'm gonna use these lines here as the guide. Again, I want to make sure that it's flush up here so I have the paper straight. You can also use the grooves in the Caterpillar on this side just to make sure that everything is aligned perfectly. Okay, now once I cut this off, and it looks like I left just a little bit of an edge on there. Let me turn this off for a second before I get blinded. And I'm going to show you how thin you can cut with this, which comes in handy occasionally. So I needed to take just about this much off so you can see how thin this can cut if needed. So I've taken that off. Now the next step that I'm going to do is, before I slice this into 1/2 inch pieces, strips, I'm going to use the scor-pal to score each of these strips right in the middle. Do you need to do that? No, you really don't need to if you don't have one of these. You can skip this step. It just makes it a little faster because each of these strips will have to be folded in half. So it just makes it easier if you have a score line to go by. So I'm going to set this, I'm going to move this out of the way so that it's a little bit easier. And once I set this down, then I do want to hold on to it so it doesn't move. As I start scoring this, this is going to tip up a little bit, so I want to make sure that it doesn't move at all. So I have my first line, and that's going to be the halfway point on the first strip. And I still have to hold it from this side because there wasn't enough room. So since I know that the strip is 1/2 inch right here, then I'm going to score on the quarter for each one. So quarter, 3/4, a quarter, 3/4. Those are all my scoring lines. And this makes it much easier because, again, it's going to be much faster to fold the strip in half than individually. Or I should say it'll be easier to fold this in half because you have a score line versus just kind of eyeballing it or trying to line it up. For this, you can do 2 pages at most. I wouldn't do more than that because then it makes it harder to score properly. You can even keep it to 1 page if you want. All right, so I've scored. You can, right there, you can see the score lines, and then you can see the score lines probably a little better right there. Okay, so once I have this, this is gonna go, and you're gonna repeat this with all of the pages. I printed out, this pattern took 10 pages to print, as you saw on the printer. And you do want to keep this number on here all the way up until the point it goes into the book. If you trim that off, it's gonna be trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle by that point. So just make sure you keep that on there the whole time. And I'm gonna bring this back so I can trim off. This can come off, or you can leave it all the way till the end. And I'll just trim it off right now. And now I'm just gonna go and trim each one of these strips right by the number. And this is where it's going to, this side does not have a line to use this edge to line it up. So you can line it up on the top part. I guess I should scoot over this way a little bit. You can line up with the guide at the top, but at the bottom there is no guide. So what I do is I have this flush up here, and then I just use this side here to make sure that this is even all the way down. And then I know that this is a nice even strip. Now because I'm cutting 2 of them, I'm gonna have number 63 and 31 together. So I'm just gonna keep them that way until the next step, and at that point I'll sort them out when I fold them in half. So again, this is right on the line here because I can tell through the light, and then I'm gonna use that as my guide. And you just repeat this for the rest of the page. Just keep trimming off 1/2" strips at a time. Now you can make these numbers a little larger in Excel when you're printing it, if that helps for you to see the numbers easier. I think on the last pattern I did, I enlarged those numbers pretty big, so you can certainly do that. Okay, so I've cut out all the strips. Now the next step for this, I have my book. So the next, I'll repeat the process with all of them. You can do them page at a time and then put it in the book and then do the next page, or cut all the strips, whatever you find works best for you. I have this 1/4" double-sided tape, and I do have a link below for all the various supplies I'm using. In case you want to use the same thing, this is what I found that works best. You can use glue. I tried it with glue, and I found that this was much faster and easier. It didn't slide as it did with the glue that I was using. So it's this really thin 1/4" double-sided tape. And what's nice is that I can put down a whole bunch of them and then just peel off the cover as I do it, and I'll show you. So I have my first strip right here. That's labeled number 1, so that's going to go on the first page. And I have the score line on it. So I'm just going to fold these in half. And then once I have this folded, I'm still leaving that number on because I'm gonna do about, you can do this, all of these folded in half, and then start putting them in the book. So I leave that number on here all the way till the point that it goes in the book. And once I fold it over, I usually just have this in my hand and I run it right across. Now this is from the scor-pal board, but you can use any kind of bone folder, you can use a credit card, whatever you'd like. I think doing this really helps from the strip not being wrinkled. It just gives it, instead of running your finger across it, trying to get a nice crease, I think using some kind of a tool directly on the table and just pressing it helps to keep it straight. If you think about it, when you do, if I have this strip of paper, which was here, if I do this to it, it tends to curl. So if I do that, then that's how you end up with the wave to it. But if it's directly on the table, you'll eliminate some of that wave in any case. I won't fold anymore. I want to show you my next step for this. So I'm using my book stand for it, and I'm going to start on the first page. And I try and streamline as much as possible with all these various steps. So what I'll do is I'll take the tape and cut, 50 of these little pieces. So I'll use a tile of some sort, like this. Put it right here. So I'll just cut a whole bunch of pieces of tape so that I don't have to keep picking this up every time I'm on the next page. I'll just go right down the whole tile and cut like this. Okay, so this way I'll have all of these double-sided little pieces already prepped. Now for here, I will take, and this first page looks like it's glued a little more than usual, but I'll take the double-sided tape, and this strip I know is going to go from top to bottom of the book. Whoops, this way. So now if you remember the way this goes, the number in Excel is at the top. So I want to make sure that once I cut this down, I want to make sure that it's always at the top. So I haven't cut this down yet, but the tape will go right along the edge, and you want to be along the edge because this strip is 1/2 inch, but now that it's folded in half, it's 1/4 inch wide. The tape is 1/4 inch wide, so you want to be literally right on the edge of that paper. If you go farther in, then you won't get as much of this to stick to it, and also you'll end up sticking your pages together. So once you've applied the tape here, then I'm gonna trim this off because now I don't need that number anymore. And I open this up slightly, just run my finger across, and these will come off. And you can do a whole bunch of these. You can do these. I wouldn't do more than about 15 or 20 because then it kind of becomes bulky in that area and it's going to make it a little harder. So once I have this down, then I want to make sure it's flush from top to bottom and it's also pressed all the way in. That way it's consistent. If you're not careful and this is sticking too far out, then you're going to end up with some of it like a ridge effect to the page. So once you have it in, then you can fold this down. Now it's not glued here, but that's fine. It doesn't matter because you're not, that's not going to do anything. You just want to make sure that the top and bottom are glued down. So same thing here. I will put a little piece of tape right at the bottom and right at the top. And my next number would be 5, or no, 3, sorry. 3 comes after 1. Because the 2 is on the back here, so this would be page number 3 that's in the book. And again, generally I'll fold about 20 of these so that I can almost do it like assembly line style versus one at a time. Set it down, and I'm gonna run this across because I want this to be as sharp as possible. Numbers at the top, and I'm gonna trim this off. Now if you're doing multiple ones, what I did on this last one, just in case you set this down and then get distracted with something, and I was like, oh gosh, which is the top and which is the bottom, you know, depending on your design it might be a little harder to tell. So what I came up with on this last one was, I will show you 1 second. So again, it's all the way in, press it down, all the way in, press it down. So this way it's sharp edge, the strip is pressed all the way in. But what I did with the last one was I took the page just to make sure in case I cut the number off and I don't remember which is the top and the bottom. I just took a pencil and just drew a very faint line, kind of like this. That way I knew that this is the top of the page right here. So if I get distracted, I can look in the back and I can tell that, you can see my faint line, that's the top of my strip. So just a little tip as I was making these. So just keep, you know, again, assembly line. Usually what I'll do is, as far as my assembly line is, I'll do 2 pages at a time where I will score them and then cut them into strips. I'll fold all of these. Now they're scrambled, so it means, you know, getting the numbers back in order. Folding these in half, and then I have them all lined up. So I'll do 10 pages at a time with the double-sided tape and then put them on, and then I move on to the next 2 pages. I will do about half the book and then show you what it looks like. So at this point I'm about not quite halfway through, but you can see that the image is starting to show up. And if you look at just a little section of it, this is the strip that's glued right on the edge. Now I use the double-sided tape that's little pieces because I found that made it where I could glue like 10 of them at a time and then go back and do the strips versus doing double-sided tape for every single page and then setting it down. But just wanted to show you about the halfway point. And then once you have all of the little tiny strips glued on, then here is how this turned out. I'm very pleased with it. Now the one thing that's very important is that when you glue these strips down, that they are all completely against the edge of the page. Otherwise you'll have different heights and you'll be able to tell that you have different heights with the book. So that's very important to do. But you can really use any photo. It does take some ink to get this printed, but it's pretty cool if you're able to do your own image or your own pattern in Excel. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions as you're creating the image, please don't hesitate to comment or reach out. And if you do make this, join my Facebook group and post it there. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next project.